Hey everybody, welcome to Local Business Hacks Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Case, and I'm on a mission to help you. Every week, we're going to be talking to local business owners and experts to get their best tips, tricks, and hacks to grow your business. This show is designed to teach you, inspire you, and motivate you to take massive action and start to build your future-proof business. Whether you're just starting off or you're taking your existing business to the next level, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Director of Global Business Dev at Referrizer, joined today by a badass in the health wellness space, Jamie Lanza, the co-founder and visionary of Camp. Jamie, thank you for blessing us today and welcome to Local Business Hacks.
What's up? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Love to share the word and the love and connect to other people to see what we can do with this magical industry that we're in.
Hell yeah. So Jamie, I'm very aware of your journey, but I'd love to hear from you. What got you to this point in your career? And yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, hopefully I'll get to meet some of you one day. You never know when we cross paths, but I have a tattoo on my arm that says, be right here. And that's always been my mission in life, is to use every tool possible to be as present as physically possible. And I believe that the more work that I do and that we do as a community to be present, the more we're able to receive what's next for us rather than obsessing over what's next, right? And so my whole career path has actually been in advertising. I went to school, was supposed to become a public policy attorney to follow in my dad's footsteps, and then totally took a different route and learned from some phenomenal human beings in the ad world, and worked for a long time for a company called MDC Partners in New York, and learned from some people who just taught me things about how to get a consumer to fall in love with a brand that I cherish so much. And I'm so grateful for that experience with them. And so my husband, our family, we have a big restaurant group called Chicho Restaurant Group, and they're based in Florida, lots of generations back of restaurants from New York and San Francisco and et cetera. Once we decided that we were going to set up Tampa as home base, which is where the restaurant group is now based out of, we had a lot of discussions of like, when are you going to leave New York? And I was like, never. And that obviously wasn't going to work. And so starting to explore if I was going to leave MDC Partners and leave the world of advertising and experiential advertising, what would I do? And like, what would that path be? And my personal life has always, for many years, been rooted in the practice of yoga. It is my center. It is how I keep my equanimity. It is what I use to keep myself rooted into this earth and connected to the higher being and in that space. And so if I had the opportunity, which I did, to leave this really amazing career that I loved, I really loved it and I was really grateful for it, and to merge that with my life passion of yoga, what would I do? And so we started to explore different sites and different pieces of land, and came across, after many hardships, we lost a lot of properties and a lot of moments where I was like, oh, forget it. It's not going to happen. I'm going to go back to it. Like years of that, right? Like getting attached to, this is it. This is the driver. This is going to be the one thing that was going to bring this business concept to life. And then we would lose it. Finally came across a piece of property, which is now Camp Tampa. We own the land as a family there, and we have just over an acre of land. And I remember when we first took it over, we only had half an acre of land, and I was still living in New York. And it was 7,000 square feet, 2 separate buildings, had a Quonset hut on it. It was an old costume shop, 100-year-old buildings, total explosion of like everything you could think of on this one piece of property. And I remember standing in the building, first of all, thinking it was haunted. My girlfriend were in there and I were in there one day, and we swear we saw like something fly through it, and we like sprinted out because the buildings were so old and creepy, but amazing. And I was like, what are we going to do with 7,000 square feet? Like the original idea was like, okay, I'll take this passion of yoga, turn it into some kind of like really great consumer experience, you know, that also had a hospitality element to it, and realized that it needed to be bigger. It needed to be bigger because the property said it needed to be bigger. So going back to the point of being as present as physically possible, I think that these opportunities are always presenting themselves to us if we're willing to listen, right? If we're really willing to see and listen. And so went back to the drawing board, spent a lot of time down in Miami, spent a lot of time in LA. I've been a habitual traveler, lived in a ton of different cities, and really experienced the world as a consumer in this industry, right? And so I was like, what did I love about New York? What did I love about Miami in this industry? And it was to take a soul cycle class, to take a berries class, to take a moto yoga class. You know, I was a little bit of everything, but yoga was my anchor. And so that's essentially what we ended up doing, looking at the campus and saying, wow, would there be a way to take this boutique fitness world? We're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking something that we love and that we're grateful to be a part of and put it onto one campus and make it accessible enough in the price point where I'm not spending $700 a month to go to all of these different concepts, but also still make sure that every building felt robust and crisp and high quality, the way that the boutique fitness industry, I think, has elevated what we're doing outside of perhaps just a space that offers a lot of little things. So long story short, that's kind of like how it got its entry. And the idea started to come to life of the campus itself, because it felt like a campus, right? What I wanted as a consumer, moving to Florida with a root in yoga, and very much that root in yoga of our language. And then most importantly, my business partner, Jen Azzarelli, is just like such a special, amazing human being. And I always say that I'm like the explosion of ideas and the people and the creative. And she was a sous chef in Philadelphia, and she'll sit down with me and be like, okay, that's really cute. That's an amazing idea. However, this is how it's actually going to happen, right? And she was like an operator. She was really able to help us take those ideas and ground them and root them down and bring it into a force that brought forward this amazing concept of camp. And then it expanded from there. I don't know how much you want me to talk, but there's more. Okay. So we open the campus, we launch it, right? After a lot of trials and tribulations and finding our people and shit that did not work at all and things that worked incredibly well, right? And like just the mess of opening a new business, we got so busy so fast. I mean, like month 2, I remember Jen and I sitting in the office and tears like pouring down our face because we hadn't actually thought about that we need operating capital in our bank account, right? We spent everything on the build out and bringing on all the people. And then we had like 40 grand in payroll and we were losing money and we were like, whoa, what did we do? Are we going to be okay? To then month 9, being so busy that the walls felt like they were going to break down. Like we were having problems with parking. We were having problems with neighbors. We were having problems with electricity, with Wi-Fi, like you name it. It was like 0 to 200. And we're like, what is this? Like, what happened? What is this place? And so there was another property next to us, another half acre of land that had an old multi-use kind of apartment complex and a couple of different offices downstairs and a storage unit on the other side. And they're dear humans to me now, so I want to be cautious of how I intro them in the beginning, but they didn't love us, let's say, in the beginning, because the parking was crazy, the sound was crazy. Of course, we didn't soundproof our circuit studio, so the bass was like boom, boom, boom at 5 a.m, waking them up, et cetera, et cetera. So bursting at the seams, I reach out to them and I said, let's meet for coffee. I want to talk about how we're going to mitigate the sound issues. We meet for coffee. We sit down and I said, I actually don't want to talk about the sound issues. I want to talk about buying your property. I knew this is the only way that I could get a meeting with you. Here we are, like at least it's out on the table. And her and her husband were sitting across from us. And I saw her kind of like nudge him under the table, like don't speak, like don't say anything right now. We laid it out there. The meeting was all of like 7 minutes. We walk away and we hear from their broker the next day that they were willing to sell the property if we were willing to pay for it. So through some layers and things, we ended up buying that piece of land fairly quickly. And there we were able to make like such a beautiful piece and provide them with a really beautiful next part in their life. And they retired and moved on. And we were able to kind of like take this property. And so we demoed the 2-story building. We added almost 80 parking spaces. And then we took over the storage unit and we built 2 more concepts in the storage unit, which is our strength training room and our Pilates and sculpt room. And I feel like once we did that, the campus took its full nature. It became this vortex. It's very circular in the way that the energy moves throughout it. We built an 85-foot community garden. We built a composting site. We started hosting like massive events on the campus. And we were like, whoa, like this is an engine, right? Like now we're talking. Like now it felt like it could handle what we had taken on. And it was a powerhouse. And then COVID hit. So that was cool.
Exciting. Jamie, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that obviously being here now, smiling, proud, and expanding is a testament to the investment that you and your family and your business partners made. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've had 3 million campers come through and take workouts at LA and Tampa already.
That's right.
Hell right. Yeah. So if you guys haven't gotten excited to hear the rest, let's dive in on how that happened. So as far as the camp, for those of you that want to learn more, welovecamp.com. and we.love.camp on Instagram. And I'd love to hear from Miss Visionary co-founder, what is truly unique outside of clearly having way more space than every fitness studio around? What is the unique factor of camp?
I think the unique factor of camp, I say this a lot, and I want to make sure it feels like it has meaning behind it, is we are a human business selling human experiences. And like staying so true to that and staying so rooted in our people first and paying attention to not only them and their well-being, like our mission as a company is to create happier, healthier adults. It's the only thing I want to see happen with this company, whether we grow, we don't grow, whatever the next space of that is, right? That are we actually making this place a better world than where we found it? My dad always used to say that to me, like, leave this place better than where you found it. And that's our intention. Like, are we showing up at a place where we're every guest who walks through that door, we are truly trying to help them become happier and healthier? And that has to start with our people, right? And so really spending an immense amount of time with them on not only their physical well-being, but their emotional and mental well-being, and really treating them like human beings and having them have space and have a voice in this company. And so from the very early days, we had a lot of instrumental people who we gave space for them to have a voice in the company. This wasn't just like, oh, this is Jamie Lanza and this is the business and that's how it's going to roll, right? Like if that was the truth, I don't think we would have been 1/100th as successful as we are today. It's because there was always this organic opportunity for other humans to have a voice in who we are and what we're doing. And so even our strength training program, like it's called Stations. This is a good example. We had a coach who's been with us for such a long time. His name is Lance. He'll be, what up, Lance, in case you hear this. I can't remember what day he started doing it. A lot of times, like it feels like chaos when this happens, right? Because it's out of control. But I don't remember if he just decided to do it or we talked about it. But he started running a Stations class in the circuit room, right? And the circuit room is all treadmills on one side, strength training rig on the other side. And sometimes it can get a little monotonous, right? For the coaches or they want to change it up for the user and create this experience. But when you're running a business that has 305 classes a week, continuity and consistency is important, right? So we're constantly kind of balancing those two things, but not giving space for those voices to come through. And so he started running this like multi-station program in the room and it started to gain legs. And we're like, okay, maybe the user likes it. So then we kept throwing it on the schedule, right? So we'd have circuit and we'd also have stations. It continued to grow. It continued to grow. It continued to grow. Eventually, with many other coaches, Dylan, Brian, so many people who've had a huge impact on this business, we were like, let's build it a room. Like it's obviously something. And it started to like have this kind of out of its infancy phase and like into something more substantial. And now we have a whole strength training room called Stations. And it's an incredible, massive part of who we are. In the sculpt room, in the yoga room, we had a teacher who came to me once for an audition, just this explosion of energy. She had moved down from South Carolina. And she said, I have an idea for a class. I want to call it, I don't remember, it was like Bar Inferno or something, like some Tabata, 2010 rhythm-based class. It was insane for 50 minutes where we're going to move as fast as possible and do as many movements as possible to the beat of the music. And I was like, great, let's try it. So we tried it. It was wild. And of course, then we continued to refine it, right? With more and more humans that became a part of the team. And all of a sudden it became so popular, we built it a house. And now we have the Sculpt and Pilates room, and so again, long story short, I think we've just really leaned into the human element of who we are and what we do. And we've given space for those humans to participate in this business. And it's created a collective of energy and a collective of thought that is so much bigger than what we could have done if we like wrote this business plan out and said, hey, this is how this is going to go, and also our community. I mean, I know that's a little bit cliche, right? Like every gym now says like, oh, we have the best community. First of all, we really do have an incredible community. You should come check it out. But it's very organic and it's very authentic. And I think a big part of that is, again, we've given people space to share their voice and to share within the community. And the campus, we throw these like huge events. We do live comedy shows now in LA in our parking lot off of Lincoln because our assistant general manager is a stand-up comedian. And he was like, hey, I'd love to do this for our community. I think there were 300 people who came a couple weeks ago on a Friday night, and like traffic's driving by on Lincoln and we're holding this like massive stand-up comedy show in the parking lot, on the campus. So that is our engine, like staying true to that. And I think as we've gotten bigger and as we grow, it's easy sometimes to pull back from that a little bit because it feels scary and too expansive. And how do you integrate? So it's a balance between all of those things, but it definitely has made camp this like little magic house. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I think something that you brought up earlier before I asked that was looking at your average boutique customer. Like, who is going to boutique fitness? Who is your Orange Theory customer, your F45er? And really holistically approaching that as, and I don't know if you know this statistic, but your average person that joins a boutique gym with a membership over $149, which is almost every brand, they have 3 other memberships that have to do with their wellness. So whether that's a membership to Restore Hyper Wellness for their cryotherapy, or to Club Pilates for their Pilates, or Yoga 6 for yoga, it's amazing how many people are forced into or feel forced into having separate communities at which, you can't really expand fully when you're jumping from one click to the next click to the next. And that, forget the travel time and the investment that you have to make to drive and schedule and be a part of all of these things, when in reality we know that there's a flow that our body exists with that resonates, whether that's doing Pilates first or yoga or whatever it may be. But I think that it's incredible, and hats off to you guys for really circumferencing all of that underneath one, I'll say roof, but 1 acre, and supporting your community that way. Another thing that I think really resonates, and if you look at the community of the camp, you guys have very little churn, and that's an existence of who your members are and what that community is, because people are staying and you don't have attrition like these other big bucks or even boutique gyms have. So that's the testament to you on what that community is. And when people say, Carl, you're the smartest, most talented man I've ever met, what are you doing at Referrizer? I'm like, guys, I look at my team, and I've been here for 7.5 years, and my average team member has been with me for over 4. And what does that mean for a remote software company to have people that are bringing their friends, their family, and their life into the business? It's a testament to what we're doing. So congrats.
Yeah. I have a deep practice with so many teachers in the meditation world and in yoga, and meditation is yoga, but in my asana practice and all this. And I think that one of the biggest things I've been sitting with lately is, what's the root behind it, right? Like the root feeling, the root belief behind it. You can say whatever you want. You can sell a consumer on whatever you want. You can sell a guest on whatever you want, right? Or your team member. But if the root behind it, the feeling behind it, the energy behind it isn't from that place of truth, I think that it will be a little bit thin, right? It will be a little bit surface level. And so the more that we push and we drive from that place of a deep root and a deep connection, we will build things that last a really long time, because there's a lot of depth there in that. And what you said about the campus, it came from a root energy, not from a perfectly thought out business plan of how it was going to go, as if we know, right? As if we're in control. My yoga teacher used to wear a t-shirt that says, relax, nothing's in control. And so Tyler Azzarelli, who's a business partner, Jen's husband, and also the CEO of Chicho Restaurant Group, amazing human being, he said once, he and I were sitting down years ago when we were talking about the business in Tampa, he said, we both were talking about like, wow, we didn't anticipate what it was going to be like to bring these like strength training humans, the yoga humans, the cycle humans, the childcare humans, the Pilates humans, the circuit running humans, the garden humans under one campus, and then watch them cross paths.
Yep.
We didn't force them to cross paths, watch them cross paths and see what organically grows from that, right? And it created this energetic community that was like, whoa, people who otherwise in these cliques, as you said, who don't interact on a day-to-day basis are now becoming a part of something together in different ways and sharing things in different ways. And then open a location in California and have a location in Florida, which are 2 very different worlds, which I'm sure you understand. also creates a whole new level of synergy and equanimity and balance, because you're bringing people together who otherwise perhaps wouldn't cross paths and are now sifting off any labels or layers or cliques or any these things and moving in the same atmosphere or the same ecosystem. It's really profound what happens with that.
Oh yeah. My biggest case study to that is Tony Robbins. Thank you, Andre, to our founder for 6 years ago, just telling me that I don't have a choice. I have to go with him to unleash the power within. At American Airlines, he's like, I'm buying your ticket. We couldn't afford at the time to get the seats in the front. And I'm sitting in American Airlines where the Miami Heat play, all the way in the top row. Like I can touch the ceiling from where I'm sitting. And out comes on stage Tony Robbins, who 15,000 people light up, like that spoke, I think, 40 languages and are just
Wow.
there, lit as could be. I have goosebumps all over me, just happy to be there in his presence, ready to invest 4 days of their time, energy, money into becoming the best version of themselves. You were stripped of every label, of every material item, and you are now bucketed together as this group of people all invested in themselves. And the energy was, I drank the Kool-Aid. I can't
Wow.
experience that anywhere else. So, I mean, the fact that you're doing this now in a wide range of modalities, because you look at strength training people that are really dedicated and have dedicated 20, 30 years into strength training. And then you say, hey, come take a Pilates class, and they laugh at you. And yoga, they're like, no, I don't need that. And then they experience this, and
Yeah.
they're so full of gratitude for that push because they've been in the same space as the camp, commingling and being like, wow, that person's irradiating this light. What did you just do? Oh, I just took this badass Pilates class. Okay, it starts.
The amount of people in LA who I'm seeing in the very recently, last couple of months, who are diehard station strength trained humans in the Pilates room, it's like one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite things. And they're becoming a happier, healthier human because of it. Not only because there's a level of humility in trying something new and putting yourself in a place where you're uncomfortable, right? But they're changing their movement patterns. They're changing their patterns in general, right? We as human beings are a pattern. And so the only way that we create change is to start to shift patterns within that. And so exposing them in a really safe environment where they feel comfortable and welcome to do so, like, bring it on.
Bring it on. Yeah. People, just a reminder, we love camp.com. Get into the experience.
Yeah.
Jamie, I want to thank you again for sharing what you've shared so far. And I want to peel back a little bit when you were talking about the rapid expansion that you and your partner and the whole team, the 40,000 in payroll, experienced over the first, 9 months of this trial and error phase. And something that you said was that shit didn't work that we thought was going to work. And there was stuff that we didn't think that was going to work that worked. And if we really focus in on what were the key takeaways that were unique to you and the experience that drove those, what are those? And maybe that could be your hack for the day, or if there's hacks that you've learned along that. But what was that experience that was unique to you that's not something that we could Google to find, like, hey, I'm opening my first gym. What do I not need to do?
Well, first of all, make sure you have enough money in the bank to cover operating capital, like for 6 to 9 months at least, right? Because it takes time. It just takes time to build a business, period. No matter how great the idea is now, no matter how expansive, make sure that you have that runway and that space it's just really important. And also to give yourself space and realistic expectations, which leads to, I think, my biggest hack, and this is not unique to me, but it's the most important thing to me, is when you start coming to decisions or choices from a place of fear, from a place of scarcity, the root behind that decision is not going to be the right answer, right? And so you do that a lot. We did that a lot in the beginning. I would say, just even in finding your people, they're not bad people, right? But in the beginning, we hired from a place of fear of, we're not going to make it without this person. we don't have enough people, so we have to hire them, like whatever it is in that infancy stage, because you don't have the voice or the roots yet. And so finding your people, again, not bad people, whether they worked out or didn't work out, just your people that were the right humans to drive the business to where you needed to go. I think that's really important. And so I think mistakes that we made were just coming from a place of fear and starting to, which takes time to build that confidence and that strength, right? And that abundance, and just trusting that was part of our process. And in the beginning, we had to make a big turn on the opening team that we started with versus the whole team that really landed with us in the long term and where we went. And then we learned, right, as we went, like, hire from a place of strength, get really tight on what are our values, who do we want to be as a company, what matters to the product that we're putting forth, and not coming from a place of scarcity. And it's so much easier said than done when you're like in it and you're in those first couple of months. But I think that just trusting that you started something that's very true and very your truth, it was our truth, and coming from a place of strength and not fear. As we hired, as we made decisions. And the more we do that, the more longevity in those decisions, the longer lasting they are, and the stronger they are.
Thank you for the knowledge bomb. And you can apply that to all aspects of your life.
It's so true.
Especially business. And, create that security, that insurance, that buffer for you to breathe. Because people, if you're not breathing, the things that you're doing are not going to support you. And if they do, it's going to run out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Jamie, and it, right? Like, if you trust that feeling, you can feel it in your gut immediately. You know that you're starting to do something that's not sitting exactly in your truth, but you feel like you have to. I'm using air quotes for those who can't see me, right? You feel like you have to, because you're like, oh, if I don't hire this big instructor because they have this huge following, we're not going to survive, or we're not going to make it, right? And so you can get really wrapped and really caught in that. But get to the root of, like, is this the right human who's going to grow with you for the long term? Try to really believe and trust and feel that out.
Stay tuned for episode 2 with Jamie and I on how to trust your intuition. But
oh yeah, I want to do that one for sure.
I'm open. As far as today, let's rewind a little bit and focus on the importance of the team. Something that I've had the director of sales for Orange Theory on here talking about: slow to hire, quick to fire, and how his best employees and best franchisees and best partners have come from handing a business card to that superstar waiter or waitress, that you see that there's something there that you cannot teach, because hiring what you can't teach is the number one thing. I can't teach you how to smile. I can show you that when you're smiling over the phone, you have 100% better chance of having a conversation with someone that's going to land versus, can I help you? No, I don't. You can't help. So as far as, your tips and tricks, first of all, how many employees does the camp have today across both locations?
I think with LA, so we have LA, we have Tampa, and we have a central office team that are based in Tampa now. I think we're somewhere around 220.
Incredible.
Something like that. And in the restaurant group, I don't know, 1,700, something like that.
Amazing. So outside of the stressors that are related to, hey, if I bring you on the team, I have the responsibility as a co-founder and visionary that your food is going to be on your plate at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What have been some of your best hiring tricks outside of trusting your gut, which I really, let's do episode 2 of that, because that we could both,
that'd be amazing,
value on it.
We could talk all day about that.
Yeah. What is, like, Jamie's tips, or, your organization's tips to hiring 101?
Yeah. You need to really know how to listen, right? Because if we don't have the skill set or the tools to listen, all of our leadership team do breathwork now, meditation, right? All sorts of practices to get them enough of a personal practice of learning to listen. A lot of times when we go into interviews, you're going in with your own agenda of what you need from them, whether you're coming from a place of, I need this role, so this person better be the one, or a previous notion from what you saw on their LinkedIn or their agenda or whatever, their resume. And so I think if you can sit in these spaces when you are in the interview process, ask really good questions. Do you have really good questions so that you can really listen to what they have to say, so that you can really start to pull out not the scripted version of someone, but rather the more real version of someone. And we hire by our values. We fire by our values. period. Everyone in our company knows what our values are as a company, and everybody who's getting interviewed knows what our values are. And anytime there's a development conversation, it is always around, we do something called quarterly conversations. Every single leader in our company has a quarterly conversation with their leader, and we assess the values. Are they showing up in the core values of us as a company? And we use that as a tool set for us to continue to go back. So CAMPS is be your best self, always evolving, keep it playful, be a good teammate, and next level experience. Every single one of those things also have subcategories underneath them, but we use that as like our central anchor, right? And so do we know how to ask really good questions to get to the bottom of, is this person actually going to be able to fit within this framework? Or can we develop them, which is also very important to us, to get them to that space? And I agree with that statement that there are these unteachable things. And I think that you can see that really early on if you're willing to listen, right, in that space. Also, our community is really strong. Our community of our team members is incredibly strong. And a lot of people who join our team now have been referred by another very strong team member because they love working for our company and they want other people to work for this company that they love. So yes, we've gone outside and hired a few outside hires, very few. But for the most part, they've come to us because someone else works in our company who really loves working for this place, and they've referred more great people to us through that pathway. And that's honestly been one of our best, even with our guests too, right? Like, yes, we do experiential marketing and we do some PR and we do things to get the voice out, but really it's people who fell in love with the brand who are referring other people to come into the brand, right? And that's where we grow organically.
Hell yeah. I'll give a piece of tidbit for those of you that are listening that are engaged in hiring tricks. Prior to coming over to Referrizer, I developed one of the largest restaurant softwares in the world and had 500 employees in my office in Boca and had a hiring nightmare. Like month 3, I'm hiring like crazy and I had to fire my whole staff because there was just a bug and it was dirt. It was nasty. I didn't want to be a part of it. So we just clean slate. And I started asking a question that really shaped all of my hiring. And it was, don't give me the answer, which that was how I started. I don't want the answer, but I want to know your thought process. So right there, I already lost half the people because they immediately give me the answer. But I'd like to know your thought process on, and I repeat it again, don't give me the answer. I'd like to know your thought process on how to calculate how many ping pong balls fit inside a Boeing 747. And right out the gate, people would say, oh, it's 100,623. And I'm like, where the heck did you get that from? Well, it's just a guess. That's not what I asked. And I'm immediately like, that person's not for me. The greatest hire that I ever had asked me a million questions. Is the fuselage empty? Are there seats in the plane? Can I fill the cockpit? What's the square? Like how many cubic inches is a ping pong ball and how many cubic inches is the plane? Can I fill the whole thing? Is the bathroom empty? Is there like what? And I started seeing this person's analytical questions being asked. And it was so clear that those are my hires, that that's the person that I want to not only show me that, A, you're listening to me when I'm asking you a question and you're answering to your truth. Like, I'll never forget, I had somebody that told me, I don't know where to start. And I was like, I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
There's no time frame. If I can give you a piece of paper and a pen or a calculator and you want to use that, like whatever tools you need, I'm here for you. Just let's think about the thought process. And it's just those questions can really teach you, how does somebody think and how do they respect you as their potential leader? So
no, it's amazing. I can't remember who said it, but someone once said, and we talk about this a lot in our company, and Tiffany Russo, who's our VP of programs, another powerhouse in our company, is like the best question asker ever in life. Like that's one of my favorite things about her is just always inquisitive and always asking questions to get us to think deeper. And someone said once, questions are open doors and answers are closed doors. And so we're just in this constant state of expansion, and how uncomfortable are we willing to get to go a little bit deeper, right? To like know that there's a continuous opportunity to open a new door because we're willing to dig.
Dig. It's worth it. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Best advice anybody could give you when growing your business by far. Jamie,
the quick to fire one is hard. It's hard. because we really care about people. When you want to develop people and work with them and really trust that we're here to do the right thing and know the moment when it is time to let them go, but also know the moment when it is time to go a little bit deeper and help them evolve.
Yeah. Probation's been a great thing that we've implemented in having a 90-day probationary period with clear guidelines and outcomes, and then revisiting that so that the person has the opportunity they want to turn around and show up. But yeah, I think that you said something really awesome, and it's a quote I'm totally going to steal with your permission, is continuity and consistency. And that, as far as your brand is concerned, I mean, wow. Anyways, Jamie, in closing, I got two great questions for you, if I may.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you a reader or a podcaster?
Reader.
Okay. What are like top books that are correlating the business and or personal development that you would say that everybody listening could benefit from?
Okay. So right now, I'm always digging and opening doors of podcasts will spark an idea and then I'll find the book that led me to that and then go really deep into that. I've recently been very much into Cal Newport's deep work and his time block planner and just starting to pay attention to how much shallow work we spend time on during the week and things that we're just, the mind really cannot multitask, right? And I don't know if you've heard of the idea of sympathetic resonance, that once you switch from one task to the next, there's still a resonance of everything from that previous task following it into the next one. And so what I really love about what Cal Newport's teaching me, and we're using it through our leadership team, is to create a work week where we're actually paying attention to what are we spending time on and how. And so all of our leaders right now, every quarter we create a wellness rock for ourselves and everybody chooses what they want that wellness rock to be. And mine is to do one thing at a time. And so to just start to be really disciplined to whatever I am doing, am I actually only doing that, right? When I'm eating, I'm only eating. Right? When I'm on this, I'm only on this, like, in starting to increase my capacity level, because in that space of being right here, I'm starting to, create an extension of what I can actually do within that space. And then the other one, I was trying to see if I have it in here right now because, oh yeah, hold on. This, if no one has, oh no, books are flying off the bookshelf. Can you see this? Have you heard of this book?
Contaram, no.
Oh, okay. Don't watch. Apparently, it's on a television show. Don't do that. Read the book and let your mind expand. It's 1,000 pages, I think. So it's a commitment, but it's a phenomenal, phenomenal book. And I suggest every human read this book. It's actually a story. It's a true story. And it has so many bomb drops about life and connectivity and spirituality. And it's essentially, it says it on the back, so I won't give away the book, but the story of a guy who escapes a prison in Australia and then goes to Bombay for 10 years and changes what he does with his life in Bombay to give back to the community. And then he ends up in the mafia and like all sorts of things. But the depth of where this book goes it was definitely like sometimes you read these books that like shift the way you think. And this was one of those, and worth. So a workbook, I would say Cal Newport, and a life shifting book, Shantram.
Thank you. Jamie, a book that I recommend to everyone that seems very similar to Cal Newport's Deep Work, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, which really taught me the same lesson of how much changing from recording podcasts to meeting with clients to meeting with team members really takes to make that shift, and how we can't bounce back and forth and be fully present because we're just not capable of that.
Yeah.
Especially men. We can't multitask nearly as well as women.
I think about, like, I feel like even in the early days when I was interviewing people, I'd be like, are you a good multitasker? I can't even believe I would think that way. And now I think, I don't want you to be a good multitasker. I want you to be an incredible tasker who focuses in incredibly well and then can expand their capacity because they pay attention to the right things.
There's your new interview question right there.
Yeah. They're gonna be like, what?
Like, yes, I'm a great multitasker. Okay, let me know more, and then you can learn. Yes. It's a great question. Thank you for that. Jamie, in conclusion, tell us, if you were to have dinner with a historical figure from the past, who would it be? What are you talking about? And what are you eating?
Okay, hold on. Another book. I always mispronounce his name, but it would be Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay.
right? You might have to pronounce that differently for me. Thich Nhat Hanh. He wrote a book called Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, amongst a gajillion other incredible books. I've never met him in person when he was still with us. I think he passed away. We might need to check that fact. His entire life was about paying attention to right now, right? And he gave a tool in one of his books. It may have been in this book or another one that he wrote that said, if you struggle in conversation to stay present, you pay attention to the breath. So while you and I are talking right now, if you were telling me a story and I felt my mind start to pull into what I have to do today or whatever this space is, you pull into taking an inhale and you take an exhale, because the breath is the most present portion of our life, right? And you can't be anywhere else other than right here than when you're breathing. And so I think I would want to sit with him in his presence of just that level of presence and absorb as much as I can from him of how to not miss the magic in this life because we're worrying about what's next or what was, and have him help me continue on this path of being here right now, because all we have is right now.
Amen. Thich Nhat Hanh is in heaven as of January 22nd, 2022.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you for recentering the most important thing that we can do as humans, which is be here and not be the Walking Dead.
No sleepwalking through life. Instead, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Jamie, thank you from myself and our listeners all over the globe for shining your light and trying to make a difference, especially in adults, to bring them to a healthier version. And keep being a badass.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to see what other expansions happen with you and I. Feel it.
Amazing. And in conclusion, unfortunately, Jamie does not have socials, but if you guys want to follow the camp's journey, it's we.love.camp on Instagram. And we are totally going to let you know when we do episode 2. Bye for now, everyone. See you on next week's episode.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.